welcome to Guitar Vacation. We're going to talk about my Mesa Boogie Mark IV. I've had it for over 25 years, maybe closer to 30. I'm trying to do the exact math, remembering exactly how old I was when I bought it. But it's was definitely the amp that I used when I was young and really trying to do the music thing and playing with groups and gigging and all that stuff. Spoiler alert, the guitar that you're hearing right now is not the Mesa Boogie Mark IV. Now, why am I playing guitar and not using the amp that the video is about? Well, I'm not really sure. I play guitar in all my videos, and the Boogie is currently dead as a hammer, so we'll get that out of the way. But what we definitely can talk about and explore is why it sits in my guitar room dead, and why have I not gotten it back up and running and all that good stuff. So we'll take a closer look at it real quick, and then we'll get into all the minutia of why it is currently not running and where do we go from here with the Mesa Boogie Mark IV. Let's check it out. Alright, we're on the good old iPhone audio, but here is my old Mesa Boogie Mark IV. Got it when I was around 19 years old, I'm wanting to say. Definitely used the heck out of it for a long time. But before I go into story time, there's a couple things I wanted to show on it to tie in later as far as where I am with this amp. Forgive my found footage filming techniques. As you can see, we got a push-pull. Is that a push-pull knob or just a regular knob? Knob broken off there. Plastic shaft. Knob, one of the most important knobs on the dang amp, broke it off there. Also a plastic shifted knob. That one's definitely a push-pull. And I mean, it's an old amp, so if I were to get it up and running, at the very least, it would need new tubes, filter caps, and some kind of replacement for those knobs. So we're going to go back to my other view, and I'm just going to kind of keep this amp in the picture as we talk about it further. So just as you could see from the little close-up exam we did, this amp had some miles on it. The little story behind it, I got it when I was really serious about trying to be a musician, not a fake bedroom musician like I am now. And it was way too expensive for my young dumb self to buy, and I actually financed the thing on payments. It was my first tube amp, and I got it because at the time I was in a kind of a transition, I would say. I was still playing heavy stuff. I was still, into all the Zeppelin and Cream and all that. but I had just really started trying to get into jazz and fusion also, and I wanted an amp that had everything, and it did. I wanted an amp to be able to do all of that kind of stuff well. Um, and the Mesa Boogie Mark IV did everything. It had every bell and whistle an amp could have at the time, and even now it's pretty decked out. I think the only thing it's missing with now's technology is like a impulse response output or something like that, but it's got a line out that you could do that with. As it turns out, I played this amp a lot. That's, you can tell by the knobs of being broken off. I took it everywhere with me. It was heavy. I was young. I didn't care. And when it came down to it, though, it never was that dream amp that I thought it would be. You know, even back then, I was still trying to get the liquid lead tone. I'd want to sound violinish like Eric Johnson, but also have the super liquid fusion tone. And, you know, if you think of a Mark IV, it should be able to do all that fairly well. Aside, I don't know that I could dial up a good Eric Johnson without using pedals on it. But like getting the thick fusion tone, it should be able to do well. And part of it was me, you know, part of it was I was young and inexperienced with gear, and these amps are notoriously finicky to dial in. And so some of the onus on that problem may have been me. But man, I just never got that blissful tone that I thought I was going to get, or tones. And really, I got perfectly serviceable tone. What I wound up doing, and I didn't even know this was a thing, this is just where I ended up, is I had channel 2, kind of the crunch channel, dialed in to a crunch where it would serve as a clean channel, a good sounding clean channel when I backed off my volume knob. And then I'd boost that with like a tube screamer and get that real mid forward kind of extra push when I do lead tones. And I basically used it as a one channel amp, the amp that did everything, which is asinine. Also, I spent money I didn't have. I was making payments on the thing, and real quickly it was having noise problems, and you know, put new tubes in it, and you'd have these noise gremlins you were trying to run down that were there sometimes they weren't. You know, it wasn't the bulletproof tank that I thought I was getting. So I continued to use it because of my investment in it. And it was my main and only amp. You know, I'd have like a practice amp or something around, some kind of solid state, tiny little deal. But it was my amp for several years. All the real gigging and band stuff that I actually did was using this amp. And I don't even know how I broke the knobs off and stuff like that. I didn't know there was a such thing as a road case. Never occurred to me that an amp would need to be put in a case. So again, my ignorance is part of the problem. So speaking of it from that standpoint, you know, now I've got my dream amp. I've got several amps that do everything I've ever wanted and more. And as it turns out, really what I like is a simple one channel, simple circuit amp that sounds great, that I can use my volume knob and or pedals to do any kind of different sounds in lieu of any channel switching or anything like that. I just don't have the need for it. I don't really care for it. You know, it's not really a good part of my workflow, and that may go back to how I ended up using the Mark IV as a single channel amp. And you know, finally over the years it got to the point where it doesn't play anymore. And by then it had knobs broken off and that kind of stuff. And, you know, as I do my gear rabbit holing that we all do as guitar players, I think about, man, why don't you get the old Mesa Boogie fired back up, right? I mean, if nothing else, it's an awesome amp, even if it's not the amp for you. And it should have some sentimental value, I guess. Well, number one, techs hate working on, especially like these Mark amps. They're very intricate circuits because of all the bells and whistles, and they're very crowded as far as how they are in the chassis. And so just taking it to a tech and saying, can you do X, Y, and Z, that's not as easy of an option as you would think. And you know, I'm kind of like, maybe one day I'll run into a amp tech that's got some kind of masochistic streak, and he loves working on super hard crowded circuits. You know, I don't know, but there are some things about it, in addition to it never being the dream sound for me, that really give me pause as to whether I would sink money into getting it back going. Because I mean, let's be honest, if I wanted to fire this amp back up, I could take the chassis out of the combo and ship it to Mesa Boogie, and they would be able to get it back going. No question about that. Now, I don't think that would be cheap. You know, first you're shipping something heavy a long way and a long way back. That in and of itself is expensive. And God only knows what work it needs. There's things I know it needs, and a Mesa Boogie tech may find several more things it needs. So I don't see that as being a cheap proposition. I'm like, okay, you've got a push-pull pot. There's two pots that are broken off. And, I'm like, why plastic shafts? I mean, yeah, it's my fault for breaking them. My dad told me when I was a little kid that I could tear a BB up with a rubber hammer. And well, knocking the knobs off your Mesa Boogie is indicative of that type of person. I didn't abuse the amp intentionally, but I play my stuff. My amps are getting. If I do play out or jam with somebody, they're getting drug out there and used. And that was when I was the most active when I had that amp. And just I've replaced many pots and many guitars, amps, pedals. I can solder. I'm not like a electronic guru, but I can do little stuff like that. And that amp, when I started researching, hey, what if I just got a modern push-pull pot, same value? And I started researching what that would look like to put that in myself. And as it turns out, the circuitry is so crowded that, especially in that lead push-pull part, a modern pot won't fit. And guess what? Those pots that are broken on that amp, they're proprietary from Mesa Boogie from back then. And okay, order new ones from Mesa Boogie. They don't make them anymore. So you see the option of me doing anything or a local tech doing anything that's not going to be really costly is not really an available option in my estimation. So then I get to the real decision. Is that an amp that I want to spend that much money to get back up and running? If it was an amp that I got great sounds out of, that gelled with me and was my dream amp, I would definitely do it. But me in the back of my head knowing that it was never quite the amp for me is not in a big hurry to sink a bunch of money into it. I obviously, because I've kept it, still have some love for it, I guess. But if how do you sell a Mesa Boogie Mark IV that is not working? You're not going to get any money for it, or very little. So yeah, that's why I still have it. And maybe I will one day send it off to Mesa Boogie, even though they're owned by Gibson now, and get them to do the full workup on it. I don't know how they're fixing these things since the knobs don't exist anymore. I don't know. But what I do know is right now it is a decoration in my guitar room. It's a decoration that I apparently care enough about that I'm not getting rid of it, but I'm not highly motivated to spend the money to get it up and running. So maybe I'm being short-sighted, and I'd love to hear other people's opinions on it. Maybe with my 30 more years of knowledge and gear now, maybe I could get awesome sounds out of it. But I don't know. And if anybody knows any options I've overlooked as far as fixing it myself, or being able to replace those pots, and I think a local tech could do a cap job, and new tubes are like changing a light bulb. That's not a huge issue. But if I'm missing something, let me know. But until then, it'll be a room decoration until I decide that I'm gonna sink some of my hard-earned money back into it. And maybe I will, maybe I won't. I probably will eventually, but it's not at the top of the list. So, sorry, Mesa Boogie. You're a room decoration now, and sorry we didn't always get along. Maybe I would say older and wiser, but really I'm pretty much just as stupid as I was when I was a teenager. I hadn't progressed a whole lot. But maybe my older, lazier, less active self could get along with the old Mesa Boogie Mark IV better. Who knows? But anyway, that's me, my old Mesa Boogie Mark IV, and why my Mesa Boogie is at this time a room decoration. But, an amp is kind of like a good rug. It really ties the room together. So I'll just let the Mesa Boogie Mark IV do that for now. And if I do decide to do something different, or some awesome commenter steers me in a better direction I hadn't realized I have yet, then I'll let you know. I'd love one day to make a video with this thing roaring, sounding great. That would be awesome. So anyway, that's the story and the current state of the Mesa Boogie Mark IV. It is currently only something to look at in my guitar vacation. So until the next time I talk to you, I hope you enjoy all of your working amps in your guitar vacation. And I also hope you have cool things that tie the room together that are just decorations in your guitar vacation place of enjoyment. We'll holler at you soon. Later. I got a Mesa Boogie, but it don't play no more. I got a Mesa Boogie, they call it a Mark IV. All right, that's enough.